Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Toffee TV. Look who's back. Back again. Jack is back. Tell a friend. He's here. Jack is back in the house. How are you?
It's good. It's good to be home. It's been a long time coming. I've been meaning to get in for a while, but just obviously been dead busy with work. But yeah, it's good to be back.
Excellent. Excellent. How have you, what did you make of Everton's end of the season then, Jack? Because obviously it was looking grim at one stage, and then David Moyes come in and it finished quite strongly there.
Well, you know what, I'll tell you what, it's nice to just end the season without being stressed to death about like the potential imminent threat of relegation, isn't it? And not even just that, to, you know, have a season where there's not really much on the line, and, you know, not every game be important to what we may or may not achieve or avoid at the end of the season. I was thinking back, when was really the last time we had that? And I think really the last proper time, if you discount the first COVID season where Ancelotti had obviously came in, and, you know, that wasn't really a real season, was it? The second half of that. Before that, it was the Allardyce season, where there wasn't either a threat of relegation or an outside chance of Europe. So it's been really a long time.
Well, Silver's season.
First season. We were... I think we technically could have got 7th on the last day as first season, but it was an outside chance.
Second season we were obviously Carlo won it, but you've got to go back where you're just chilling.
So it'd been a long time really, but then to think about how grim it looked at one stage, to how quickly it turned around, but that's a testament to the manager. I think that, and David Moyes, he came in and got the job done very quickly. And then obviously there was a period after that where we went a few games without a win, and people started comparing, you know, points records like that to the previous manager. But what that ignores is that Moyes came in and got the job done so quickly. Whereas obviously previous season with Sean Dyche, there was the points deduction, and if we hadn't have had that, but the results had been the same, it would have been safe a lot quicker. But prior to that, there was obviously, it was life and death, weren't it? So it was imperative that you were getting these wins. So they were must-win situations, and the crowds were up for it. Very different circumstances to the final stretch of the season under David Moyes, where it was not on the beach as such, because obviously we were still going for it and still did get some good results, especially on the final day against Newcastle as well. But just to not have that pressure of, no, this is must win, we need to win this, or, you know, this football club is toast. It was good to be able to put our feet up a little bit more and, you know, be able to look at it from a perspective of, right, okay, let's look ahead to next season. Let's look at some of these players, you know, some of the younger players who we weren't sure on if they'd be staying or not, like Charlie Alcaraz and a few who were out of contract, and see, let's give these a go and see if they're going to be with us next season. And it was just, we got to enjoy it in a slightly different context than we did over the past few years. And I think more importantly, we really got to appreciate, you know, the final season at Goodison. Because, you know, I don't know if you'll remember, but first half of the season, it almost didn't feel like it was happening that we were leaving Goodison, because really every home game should have been, you know, a celebration. Oh, this is the last time we'll play so-and-so at Goodison Park. First half of the season was really quite, not moody as such, but quite apprehensive and obviously in a bit of trouble. Didn't get the chance to enjoy it in the same way that we did in the second half, and I'm grateful to David Moyes for giving us that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we had one manager playing the last season down at Goodison, and we had another manager saying how important it was that we give it a good send off, and that was a key thing. And you're right, I mean, when you look at David Moyes' record, came in one place above relegation and 1 point above relegation with 17 points after half a season, and put on another 31 points in 19 games with only 4 defeats. And yeah, there was a few draws in there, but he also lost a lot of players through injury, and he did a great job, and he set us up now for the rebuild. Definitely. That is taking place. I mean, one player you've mentioned there, Charlie Alcaraz, Everton have got that deal done. Were you impressed with him?
Yeah, very impressed by Charlie Alcaraz. I'm glad that we're getting that deal done. For me, it's an absolute no-brainer with the fee that's been mentioned. Yeah, I think with Alcaraz, he's not a complete player. I think he's going to have moments in games that are frustrating, or, you know, perhaps even games themselves where it doesn't quite click for him. You know, sometimes he'll take shots when they're not really on, and you can see he gets a little bit frustrated within himself at times. but he's got a lot of ability in there, and it's been a while since we've had a player, you know, especially in that number 10 role, who can really carry that ball and pick out that pass in between the defenders. I think I'd compare him stylistically to sort of early Ross Barkley in terms of what he was in that team. Not quite as good, obviously, but, you know, in terms of that drive on the ball and play a lovely pass in behind to, you know, a striker who wants to play on the shoulder. It is like an approximation of that Barkley Lukaku in the early days, not with as much quality, obviously, but stylistically it's moving in that same pattern, and, you know, that went very well for us going forward, didn't it? And yeah, I think he's the rightful future of that number 10 position long term. I think that's the direction to move it into, because obviously we've had Decore in there in the past, and, you know, obviously he's one who splits opinion, and his performances could really go one way or the other, because obviously some massive goals over the years for us and some massive moments, and brings a lot of energy into that number 10 role as well when he drops back into the middle. But obviously, at times, he was a bit limited technically and give the ball away in silly positions, and that would limit us. I think Charlie Alcaraz is the more advanced forward-thinking version of that, and I'm looking forward to getting him in that team. And, you know, obviously he was in and out the team because we still had Decore then, and then obviously there was the clause of the contract, and you don't want to commit to that too early, so he never really got a consistent run of games starting. I'm looking forward to seeing him, hopefully from the start of the season, in that number 10 role, making it his own.
It's up to him now, isn't it? He's got pre-season to do it. What did you make of Beto in the second half of the season? Because he certainly delivered, didn't he?
Well, he came on very strong, didn't he? I think obviously there are still limitations there. His back-to-goal play and holding on to it, and his reading of the game, it maybe aren't as quite up to scratch as you'd hope, and that's the comparison people make to Calvert-Lewin, isn't it? It's the overall game might not be as strong, but he's shown himself with his goals, hasn't he, that he's earned a chance at this football club, earned a chance to be our striker, and I'm happy for him, to be honest, because he obviously came in with a lot of expectation, and the fans took to him straight away when he first came in, and then obviously he had the spells out the team and went lengthy periods without goals. But I think Moyes came in and gave him a chance, hasn't he? And Beto obviously feels like the manager believes in him and will give him this chance. And I think regardless of what happens, if Calvert-Lewin stays or goes, I think obviously it's looking more likely that he's going, but on the off chance that he stays, I think Beto for me would still be preferred over him at this stage, as goals speak for themselves.
Definitely.
And by the way, as well, with Alcaraz, them two have developed quite a nice little relationship on the pitch, haven't they?
No, they have. And again, Everton are looking at one, possibly two strikers to come in. Yusuf Chimiti looks like he's going on loan. I think that's the right decision. Got to see whether he can do it, and he's got to go.
Needs to play football.
Got to play footy and see if he can develop. He's just turned 21. Let's see if he can do it. We'll see. He's got some good attributes. We'll see whether he can perform. One link that's there again today, and has been there every year for the last 4 years, is Sean Longstaff, who knows if it's real? I don't know. It seems that if it is, then there's a database at Everton that keeps spitting Sean Longstaff's name on. It's been doing it since...
Oh, he's got like an uncle who works there.
Yeah, something like that. He's obviously a decent midfield player. You know, he's very... he does a lot of the work, the dirty work, if you like. You know, that stuff that people don't necessarily see or want to give praise for doing. He's obviously decent. He's played in a good Newcastle side for the last few years, albeit he's been in and out. But their midfield is rather good with, you know, Gameras, Joe Linton and Tonali. It's quite good. And then he's number 4 in there, isn't he? But, I mean, is he... Where are you with these links with Sean Longstaff?
Well, what's this? Like the 4th transfer team we've had that have been linked with the move for Sean Longstaff under it. Like you say, I think he's obviously got an admirer somewhere at the club, hasn't he? And listen, if you asked me a couple of years ago, Sean Longstaff would have said, no, absolutely not. Really didn't rate him. I still think, you know, obviously there's a ceiling on there. He's a certain type of player, like you say. He's a dirty work player. He's a star man in no one's midfield, but he'd be useful in a lot of people's. I think if the fee's right and the deal's right, I think there's a conversation to be had there. So we do need bodies in the middle, and he is a hard worker and he will get about the pitch. And I think he's shown good character to revive his career at Newcastle, because at one point, you know, he looked done in that midfield. And I think him and, you know, Eddie Howe as well, one thing he's done really well at Newcastle is turn around the careers of players who might look like they've given all the, Jacob Murphy and Almiron players like that.
Well, Joe Linton.
Yeah, Joe Linton, another one. He's the big one, isn't he? But yeah, I think, look, there's far more exciting transfers out there. They wouldn't be my first choice. But I think if the fee's right and the deal's right and, the understanding of the deal is that he's coming in there not to be a starter, not be a regular starter, but to be that dirty work player that we need in the team. I think there's worse out there, but I hope he's not the only one that we're looking at.
It's a tricky one, this, because obviously he will come in as potentially a number 6 in that midfield. I'm not convinced he's amazing at number 6. He's a decent midfield player, he is. But there is other ones. There's, Everton are linked with Habib Diarra again. I know Leeds are trying to do that deal. Apparently Atletico Madrid are interested in him as well. So I imagine if they genuinely are, he'd rather go there than come to the Premier League. But Everton have had a long-standing interest in him. He's 21. He's not the same player at all as Longstaff, but he's a midfield player, and he's someone who can he goes up the pitch and drives forward. I think a lot of Evertonians would rather see that kind of signing. There's players. Me and James done a video the other week on midfield players. There's a few we'd like to see come in. Macau plays in France. If you just want someone to go and sit and break play up, physically good, I'd want to see Everton go for those sort of players over a Sean Longstaff, because you're getting age and you're getting the potential and you're getting the ability to grow. Where he's 27, he's probably not getting any better than he is, and he probably would do a job for Everton in midfield. There's no doubt about it. But are we at doing a job? I mean, we've been linked with Fred as well. Yeah, so Sean Longstaff and Fred isn't exciting any Evertonian. If you had a choice of those two, where would you place your money?
Out of those two, you're going Longstaff, aren't you? Okay. Because Fred wasn't even particularly impressive when he was in the league a few years ago. And, now he's a lot older and playing at a lower level. I would not go anywhere near him, and I hope that's just a big load of agent talk. As for, the other names you mentioned, the likes of Diarra and these younger players, the more exciting signings, really, on paper, those are the ones we all want, aren't they? But it's a matter of what do you prioritise, because it seems to be the feeling that there is a bit more money to spend than there have been in past years, but not the money of old that we were spending under Mashiri. These 100 million transfer windows, you do have to be a bit more sensible than we've been in the past, which is good. I think we do need to try and be sensible. We need to move away from some of the vanity signings that we made in prior years and actually build a functioning good group of players. But it depends where you want to prioritise that money that is there to spend. Are you looking on spending on an exciting young striker like a Tierno Barry or a Walter Marde? Some of these exciting young forwards we're linked with, wingers, could do with a couple of them. Someone like James McAtee, who would be, in my ideal signing in this Everton team. I think if there's one you can go out and get.
Well, where would you play him? Because he's been talked about more of a number 10. He has played wide.
He can play on the right, can't he?
Though, has he? As in, he's not slow, but what I mean is he's not. We've been like with Ben Doak. Yeah. Ben Doak is obviously a sprinter, whereas McAtee isn't. Does that bother you? Or do Everton need another one and James McAtee?
Well, I think you're going out to get two regardless, to be honest. Especially if you get McAtee, you think he's a left-footed, isn't he? So at that point, you've got a few left-footed attack and wide options. You need a natural right-footer who can just carry the ball down the line. Outside, But I think having options in terms of how you set up is the big thing for us now going forward as well. That's why Tete is a great signing from Fulham.
I was just going to come on to it in a minute.
For me, there still is an argument, depending on what happens with Tarkowski and his fitness and when he's ready, to keep Jake O'Brien at right back. He's done really well there. I like the shape that gives us, the option for him to tuck in and make that, a bit of a back three. But then obviously having the option to switch to a more traditional right back as well just gives you that flexibility in your shape. Hopefully we can go and do the same on the left hand side and get someone who's a bit more natural going forward than Mykolenko, as an option, not necessarily to replace him, but
it should be
an option to compete. So I think having an option like a James McAtee, a brilliant footballer, for me would probably be the best natural footballer in the team if he came in. Would obviously be a great player to bring in, but then obviously you do want someone who's, a little bit more route one in terms of carry the ball down the line and whip across in as an option alongside that as well.
Well, where are you with Jack Grealish and those? I mean, listen, again, we'll do it quickly. I'm just asking James before people start losing their mind. He's been linked a few times. There's still a link there.
People sick of hearing about it.
I think a lot of people don't see it. Some, as in, they just don't see it happening, which is fine. I'm on board with that. There's a section of people who sort of go, he's finished. And I don't subscribe to that whatsoever. It's when I think he's still got a lot to give. And then I understand the people who are going, but where would you play him? Would you play him on the left? What happens with Ndiaye? Do you play him in the 10? I mean, Ndiaye can play they played in the right against England and was brilliant. So he can play either side. But I mean, just if Everton were offered Jack Grealish and Jack Grealish wanted to come to Everton, where are you with that? On loan, not paying 30 million and 300 grand a week, of course.
Yeah, first thing, it'd have to be on the right terms. Yeah. Because even if he comes in on half his wages, he'd still probably be the highest earner at the club, wouldn't he, by far. So it's straight away, that's the sticking point. Look, Jack Grealish, get him anywhere close to his best, how he was at Villa. Best player in the team by some distance, because he was an incredible player. I think there's always a risk with players who've essentially had a year out, not because of injury, but just because of not being fancied. And, there's obviously, it depends on if you subscribe to it or not, but there's questions over his attitude and his commitment from the manager, and if, Pep sees the commitment that he wants to see from him, and that those things always raise slight red flags. If you get him anywhere near his best, it's a great sign, but that's the gamble that you're taking on a player like Jack Grealish at this point, isn't it? I think part of me wants to see it just for the the potential excitement of it, to get him into the team and build around Jack Grealish for a season, get him back to his best. That would take us up a level. But the practicality of it just clashes a little bit for me in terms of the money and the risk over the sharpness.
McAtee or Grealish, you want McAtee?
Yeah, again, it depends on what money do you want for McAtee, or if we could do that as a loan. But I think for me, that's obviously the ceiling's lower, but I think there's a lot lower risk on that as well. And I know people might be saying, let's move away from the low risk, low reward type of sign. So for me, he's not low rewards. I think even if he's not as good as Jack Grealish at his absolute best, he's still a very good player. Would still be one of the best attackers in our squad. And then he is one you can build around long term.
See, I wouldn't have McAtee on loan, I don't think.
Would you not?
But I'd have him permanent all day long. I just think, would I have? I probably would. I'm probably talking nonsense. But what I'm trying to... No, but I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Jack Grealish on loan for a year, in my opinion, if he gets to any kind of Jack Grealish level, he takes Everton up. And I'm all right with that for a year. I'm all right with him trying to get in the World Cup squad and giving everything for Everton. Moyes has got a really good record of getting these people back on track and doing all that. Developing James McAtee for a year for City is slightly different, I think. Taking Grealish for a year and going, well, we're not paying 30 million for him, and we're not paying him 300 grand a week to sign him. So therefore, he's just a year loan to give us a bridge. Where McAtee, I'd feel like we'd want to sign him. Do you know what I mean? It's not that I wouldn't take him. If you said to me, well, he's signing on loan, I wouldn't be going, terrible decision. What I mean is, I'd want McAtee for longer for all of the reasons you said, because he can. You can pop him in a 10. You can play him as an 8. You can play him on the left. You can play him on the right. And he is someone who I wouldn't say build your team around, but he's someone who can become integral in your team and develop. And he's someone who, if he gets consistent, who you're going to make money on. You ain't making any money on Jack Grealish. It ain't happening. It ain't happening in any universe.
Well, we could sell, like Everton branded like hair gel and hair brands Grealish
and mid-calf socks.
Yeah.
And oil, like for his calves. Look how much it makes your calves pop. James, just that telly for us, mate, please. But I think both of them, the big thing is both of them improve. Oh, it's Jack's got it there. Jack, just press OK on that thing that pointed at the telly there. Nice one. They both improve Everton dramatically, don't they? And people go, well, where would Ndiaye play? Well, how about having Jack Grealish in the same team as Ndiaye, or having James McAtee in the same team as Ndiaye? Having better footballers who can protect the ball, wouldn't that make Everton a better team?
The thing with the McAtee loan for me, I do take what you're saying, because obviously if you bring someone like that in, you want to keep.
I'm taking him on loan. I was just spitting me dummy out because I'd
But I
want him for
think
longer.
with these, looking at the right wing position and bringing in players to play across that three in general, I think at minimum we need two to play across those.
Absolutely.
And I think one of those probably has to be a loan anyway, because really you want the cash, what cash we have got to spend to go into that team, don't you? Have to be players who come in and play.
Who you know.
So it's I think we probably will need a loan of some degree in there, and I do think with McAtee, it would be frustrating to have him in for a year and then to lose him at the end after developing him and turning him into a very good player for City. They'd go and sell to a fortune. But I'd still rather that over Jesper Lindstrom on loan for another year. Of course,
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that just because I'm trying to spit me dummy, because I want him for longer. If we get him, I'd like to sign him. Martin Davenport, thank you for the super chat. You haven't actually said anything at the moment, so I'll just see if I can, just in case you haven't, I've missed it. Hassan on the super chat, thank you very much as well. Says, afternoon lads, hope you're all good. Up the Toffees. What's the score with Fred from United? Is there any truth in that? It keeps popping up, Hassan, and I don't know, like Jack said, whether it's just his agents, he's trying to talk him up. I know that Moyes had made an inquiry for him at West Ham, but I think that was before he went to Turkey, and I don't know whether that link has just
Is he
come
free agent
back.
at the moment?
No, they want 18 million for him. He's 32 years of age. He's 32. So that to me doesn't make any sense whatsoever. If he was a free agent and it was about padding the squad out, then maybe Moyes would get him and you'd go, well, you know what? We'll give him a year or 2 year deal, and if he's rubbish at the end of the year, we'll sell him for 2 million to someone, and whatever. But 15, 18 million, I can't see it for a 32. I just can't see it, mate. Can you?
No, I'd think if we do, that's Woody, and that's it. I'd be belling Kevin Felwell, to be honest.
And what, take him to Rangers? Yeah. Come back from Rangers, because what are we doing here? But
no, I wouldn't go absolutely anywhere near that, to be honest. I think regardless of how well he's done in Turkey, or even if he does fit a certain profile, I think it's time to move on from that demographic of player now. I think, he knows the league, he's experienced. I think, the players like that are good to have, but not for 18 million when they weren't even that impressive a few years ago when they did play in the league.
Yeah. One player I would play, we'll go and get, who's just been in Turkey, is Victor Osimhen. See if anyone wants to loan him for us for a year. We'll develop him for you. Yeah, for a year.
Talk about wages.
The problem is his wages would kill the football club. But, where do you think, we will get back on Trevor, but where do you think he'll go? Because he's not staying in Turkey, is he? Saudi won him again, but he doesn't seem keen to go to Saudi.
It's an interesting one, isn't it?
If you're Arsenal, would you make a play for him?
If I was Arsenal, there's other players I'd look at first. I think Gyökeres would maybe suit them better.
27.
How old's Osimhen now?
25.
25, yeah. I think a player like Gyökeres, you'll get 5 years out of at top level, and I think stylistically he'd suit him a bit better. Man United, maybe.
United should go there. He's another one. They're another. If they're being serious about trying to get something going, then maybe Osimhen to United.
But outside of
why is he playing in? That's the big thing, isn't it? Why is he playing in
Italy? Didn't he? He needed the move.
Why is no one else took him? Chelsea looked at it
by all accounts, isn't it? It's he wants a hell of a lot of money for his services, which is a shame if that's what keeps him out of the top levels of European football, because for a while he was becoming one of the next great strikers. In that Napoli team,
he was
doing incredible, and he was a very large reason of why they won the league. So if he's going to disappear from the top end of football because of his wage demands, I think that's a sad thing. So I hope the people around him push him towards, more sensible.
He's 27 in December.
How is he?
He got 26 goals in 30 games for Galatasaray, 5 assists. Al Hilal have made €160 million offer for him, or to him rather, to go and play for them. 160 million.
What, in wages?
In wages.
Over how many years? I'm not going to do the maths on that, but I think either way it's a large amount of money, isn't it? But there was when he was at Lille, actually, Osimhen, there was a picture of him, do you remember, in the Everton shirt? When he was at Lille doing well for them.
Iwobi gave him it, hadn't he?
Has he, yeah?
And he loved it. He was like, this is a boss shirt. So maybe he'd want to just come to Everton. Not going to be on the same kind of money, obviously. You know, maybe we could give him Maupai's wage or something. Or Calvert-Lewin's. He ain't staying.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's a shame because he is such a good footballer. So Sean Longstaff, just looking, he played 25 Premier League games for Newcastle last season, which is quite a decent amount, isn't it?
Yeah, when you look at the names they've got in that midfield, you know, your Tonali's and your Bruno Guimaraes and the likes, but I think it just shows that he is trusted by Eddie Howe to come into that team and do a job and not be, you know, a noticeable drop-off, even if the ability's nowhere near the same as some of them other ones. He'll make up for it with his effort on the pitch and the ground he covers. I do think we can do worse than Sean Longstaff, and if you can get him in the region of less than 10 million, I think he is one.
He's got a year left, hasn't he? That's why they're talking about it.
I think for Newcastle, obviously with European football next season and, you know, the homegrown quota for the players you have to register, they might not be desperate to get rid of him, even if it's just a case of letting him be in the squad for a year and fill that spot and then walk away for nothing. It'll have value in that sense with the, you know, their increased schedule next year. I think he would be important for them, and, you know, will want a decent fee to let him go if they're asking for anything much further north for 10 million. For me, I'd probably look elsewhere. But we do need someone like that in the team, and that's just the reality of building a squad, because this squad at the moment, in terms of, while I do think, you know, the vast majority we've got now players that are like players that I do want to see at the club. You need players around them, you need to build a squad, and that's why we're getting linked with the likes of Longstaff and Fred and these players who certainly aren't the most exciting. It's because the club are going to need to bring in probably close to 10 players this summer, and that's just to replace what's gone out. What's
your take on the forward situation then? Because obviously Dominic Calvert-Lewin looks likely to leave, and we'll know in 6 days, won't we, if we don't know before, because that's when his contract's up. Beto, even though there keeps being stories that Everton clubs, I mean, there was one yesterday saying Fenerbahce and Galatasaray want him on loan with an option. Like, what?
But Leeds were linked as well.
Leeds were interested, but for me, he ain't going anywhere, Beto. But he's the only one we're going to have, because obviously, like we say, Schmidt going out. Like he's going. And Everton, in my opinion, need 3. We had 4 last season, and in January to March, we had 1, because 3 of them were injured. So it just shows you can't take any gambles. So therefore, out of the players you've seen us linked with, so Tierno Barry is 1, Emmanuel Omega at Strasbourg's 1, Walter Marde's 1, although he's a little bit of a second striker, but he's very good. I mean, I think he'd do really well at Everton, actually, or he's got the potential. Out of sort of those 3 who were linked, I mean, me and James had done a video, and we included like Evan Gessand, who's over in France, who's good, really strong and can take the ball, and them kind of players. Is there any who you've looked at? Because they're all raw, aren't they? I mean, Tierno Barry is raw, but he's got high potential. French striker, he plays for the under, and they tend to do all right. He's got the physical attributes, 6'4". Yeah, it's got to work a little bit on his touch, but he's done well over I think the last 3 seasons. He's got in and around between 15 and 20 goals 3 years on the run.
Well, what was it, like 18 across all competitions last year?
Well, he scored for
Europe.
He had 8 goals for Bâle, didn't he? And and that was in August, and then he went to Villarreal and got 11 and that was his first year in. So 1 in 3 for his first year in one of Europe's top 5 leagues is not bad at 22.
Yeah, for a player who's still developing, it is impressive. It's a difficult one with the striker market this window, because there aren't that many sort of established players who are, you know, who'd be on the radar.
Dusan Vlahovic, what about him? He's been linked with a loan move. He's been linked with Juve. Going to take £25 million for him.
I think someone like him would be the dream, because that'd be the sort of next level sign, and, you know, a player who's got that European pedigree, playing for a top club and getting a lot of goals in a top league, and maybe looking a little bit more sharper than some of the other players that were linked with.
He was one who they were going, this fella's going to be like the next big thing, and then all of a sudden...
He was meant to be going Arsenal, weren't he? And he was going to be a big signing for them, and went Juve instead.
Why?
Well, he's on a lot of money at Juve as well, from what I gather, which, obviously, again, would be a sticking point and is probably going to be quite a common topic of conversation this window. But he's shown his pedigree with goals, which is the main thing. I do think he is a little bit more refined than what we've been linked with. Mitrovic, another Serbian striker who was having a little look before, we've been linked with today.
He's only 25. He's not 26.
The last few weeks,
Vlahovic's not 26 till Jack, not Mitrovic, about 125, or he plays like he is. He's not 26 till Jan.
I think that one would be a really ambitious move. The one I really wanted was Liam Delap. I think he would have been the perfect striker to bring in to that setup. Obviously, he had half the country after him, didn't he? Because, like you say, the market's so scarce at the moment, and he was proven, young English striker who's got the physical side of things down. He has, the template to go on and be a great striker, and obviously the club were quite open about the fact he wanted to sign him. And, I think, there might have been a little bit of interest from his side. He certainly did seem to be having a look. Obviously, he's gone to Chelsea, with the allure of the European football and the money. Of course, we'll have a look. Obviously, he's gone there, so that's left us, needing to get a little bit more unorthodox with it. I think Tierno Barry, out of the names we're linked with, is probably the most similar to our setup at the moment with Beto. Now, you could look at that as a good or bad thing, because obviously it allows us to build in the same way that we're playing now. You mentioned playing on the shoulder of the defenders, wanting to run in behind. I do think maybe there's an argument for going and getting someone slightly more experienced, just a bit of a cleaner operator, someone who is a bit more comfortable back to goal, someone who, maybe reads the game a little bit better, maybe isn't as explosive as someone like a Beto or a Tierno Barry, but someone who just gives us a little bit more finesse in possession. But then you go down that road and you look at, well, why don't we just try and keep Calvert-Lewin? But obviously that's a situation in its own, isn't it, that I think we just probably do need to move away from. I think if we go and get Tierno Barry, obviously it will be for quite big money, but I think the way they're talking about doing it is doing it pay slightly over the release clause, and then you can stagger it over a few years, can't you? Whereas if you do the clause, it's paid up front, and that's a lot of money out.
A lot of clubs amortise it, mate, so even if Everton paid this release clause, it'd be 10 million a season over 4 years. Well, it's not even that, it's 33, isn't it? So it'd be just a bit less, 8 a season. And that's how Everton can spend over 100 million this summer because the down payments will be between 5 and 10 million for each player. So, and they'll have 40, 50, 60 million quid to spend cash-wise. So they can do it. What we've got to move away from is just doing it for the sake of it. And you're absolutely right. You've got to go, we've got this money and we've got to stretch this money. Yeah. And that's why someone like the Kenny Tete deal makes sense. He's a good player. We got him on a free. And if we can do that, loans, I think you're right. You see, I think Everton will buy a striker and then try to loan a striker. Yeah. And that'll be how they fill the gap. And it might be Tierno Barry, and then you go, well, he's a young one. Now can we get someone?
And you loan in someone a bit more experienced.
Exactly. And it's better, the young lad and the lad who's on loan. Yeah. And you go, right, you three are taking up the mantle for the season, and we'll make a decision next summer on Timothy. And if we've got our eye on another striker, then Beto, we might sell him next summer if he doesn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's options, isn't it?
Left,
it's giving ourselves the luxury to be flexible in how we set up and what business we do. And I think that's what we need to maximise. Obviously, moving away from Kevin Felwell as the director of football, who I think overall did a relatively decent job as the director. I think more of his signings were hits rather than misses. But I think one thing he did really falter on was getting too stuck on particular targets. One name I do not want to hear this summer is Wilfred.
Well, rumours Rangers were watching him the other night, so they weren't. I'm joking. I'm sure they were. If Kevin Felwell and Dan Purdy were there, it'd have been non-stop, and he got sent off.
Yeah. So. But move away from getting stuck onto particular signings and going, no, this is the dream, this is the play we need. Our squad is not at a point where there are only a select few players who can come in and improve this squad. Therefore we have to target specific players. There is a lot of scope to improve this team, even though we did finish strong and even though the manager has improved a lot of players. We can afford to look at different options and afford to think, okay, what do we need specifically? What type of players do we want? And then who are those players? Because if you're looking for someone more akin to Beto, who's a bit more explosive, wants to play on the shoulder, has a big, large frame, there are a lot of players out there you can go and look at. If you're looking for someone a bit stylistically different, like a Walter Marder, if you're looking to play with a more deep forward who's going to allow for someone to run around the outside and moving ahead of him, you can look at players like that. But it's just about being open to looking at different things and, really scouring the world for these transfer targets, not just looking at Premier League experience, manager knows and managers worked with them before, things like that. Need to move away from all that. And I do appreciate that in previous years we've been hamstrung by how much we were able to spend, and that was very little, and we did have to very much scrape the barrel with some signings. Let's still be smart. Let's still make our money go as far as possible.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Let's bring in some players who really do have scope to improve this team in the short and long term.
One bit of news that came out over the weekend was Everton have opened talk with Jared Branthwaite about a new deal. Obviously, been linked heavily with Spurs for some reason this summer. Which I personally find mad, but there you go. Is that a good deal, and how important is Jared Branthwaite right now to Everton getting them to sign another contract?
It's massive, isn't it? How often do clubs in the mid-table get to say, this lad we've got in this position is one of the absolute best in the league? It's not all that often, and we've got that with Jared Branthwaite. He's incredible. He's very good at what he does. He ticks every box. He's good on the ball. He's strong. He's athletic. Reads the game brilliantly. I think if we can keep him, you don't go as far as offer him whatever he wants, but you pretty much do. I think if you can make him highest earner alongside, I think it'll probably be Pickford at the moment, who's highest earner at the club. I'd have no problem with matching Branthwaite's wage to Pickford's.
Okay.
Obviously, you can't do that for every single player, but if there's one player who you look at in this squad and go, he's worth doing that for and he's worth tying down to keep, it's him. Our defensive record last season was very impressive. We were amongst the best for clean sheets, weren't we? And Jared Branthwaite's a massive, massive part of that.
I think, again, it's messaging as well, though. Everton, if he stays, signs a new deal and stays, I think it's a really positive message. And I think it is a case now. I think Everton do have to start flexing the muscles a little bit and going, things have changed. Because it's about perception. I'm still seeing some caution, like the echo writer thing, and we've still got to be careful. And things are changing. The match day revenue's tripling. There's a big 60-odd million dropping off the PSR calculations. PSR's getting binned as well after this season. So, July the 1st, it changes. I'm not saying Everton are going to have 200 million in cash to go and blow, or of course I'm not. But the way a lot of clubs deal now, I keep quoting Brighton last summer. Well, Brighton spent 240 million, but apparently the outlay was 41 million for those players. So this is where you can stretch that money by down. And if Everton are sensible, they will require loans. And it wouldn't surprise me if it's 3 loans. Easily, it might even be 4. It was 4 last season. It might be 4 again. They'll probably they're getting one free transfer. It looks like they might get another one. Then if that was the case, then you're up to 6 there. And then that means you're only buying 4, and there's the 10 players you've talked about. And if you're buying the 4, and you're
that's
paying,
where the cash goes.
That's it, and that's how Everton are going to have to do it. And then next summer, hopefully you've done all right again, and then you've got increased revenue coming in from the ground, and then you go again and you buy 3 or 4 more next summer, and you piece it, and if you finish higher up and everything else that comes with it, that's how Everton are going to have to do it. If you're better and you've got a little bit more exciting players, guess what? The telly puts you on a bit more, so you get another million every time you're on, or whatever it is, 1.1 million.
And then obviously all feeds in long term, maybe sponsorships and all of that. Just all snowballs,
so
doesn't it?
It's about refreshing. If you can change perception. And
having a big, franchise player, if you like, at the club to be the face of that, arguably...
Jack's on full American there because of the American owners. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
The
synergy.
That's a word.
Synergy.
But get arguably England's best centre-back, committed to this football club, you know, the face of our new ground, stuff like that. I think that would be a massive statement. And you're right, it is ambition, especially when, you know, clubs around us, clubs you'd maybe expect us to be competing with this season, are losing big players with, you know, Mpuemo and Cunha and the likes on the move. For us to be able to look at our young star, who's our biggest prized asset, and go, no, he's staying with us, he's signing a long-term contract, but actually he believes where this football club's going. It just reaffirms our position above these football clubs that people have started to associate us with.
Well, that's it. I mean, imagine a year ago, even mentioning without pissing ourselves, Jack Grealish coming to Everton on loan. You know, and again, we might, you know, maybe we should be sat here laughing now. But what I mean is, it's been talked about quite a lot, a serious thing. Now, you can look at it different ways, but the fact that that conversation is even out there shows you that the fact Liam Delap, okay, he's ended up going to Chelsea and all that, of course, but the fact that he said he was really impressed by Everton and he went and spoke to Everton and it was he just had to go with what he thought was right. That tells you Everton are A, looking positive, B, doing something right. David Moyes' messaging has been very clear since he come in. This is a team that's going this way.
Well, look at the Tete signing as well. Fulham finished above us this season. And, you know, he, by all accounts, very liked of Fulham. Fulham fans seemed gutted to be losing him. And he's taken what, you know, on paper would be considered a backward step. But obviously, you look at the stature of the club and what we are, no disrespect to Fulham, but obviously a much bigger club. And, you know, the trajectory of where we look and hope to be going with our new grounds and with our manager in charge, who's just playing very well in the second half of the season. It's just about making the club look like a positive place to be, because obviously that attracts more players. That makes it an even positive place to be. And again, it just snowballs, doesn't it? It just continues, and that's how you build momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It is going to be an interesting season. Are you frustrated with the lack of business? I know a lot of people seem really frustrated, but if you actually step back, I mean, we've said consistently on this, and in all fairness, most people know and understand it. It was always going to be get June the 30th out the way, because that's the real starting point for the Freakins, for Everton, for the new stadium and all that. And the only real clubs who spent money are Liverpool, because they won the league and had a big... They didn't really spend that much last season. They had a pot of money, and they're getting money, you know, they're getting 30-odd million for Jarrell Quansah and things.
And the players they wanted were in demand as well.
They were in demand and they had to do it. City bought players for that, and apparently they're ready to drop another 300 million this window, so you go, okay. And Chelsea and United spend money all the time. Everyone else hasn't really done that much. Everton have brought in Charlie Alcaraz and have agreed a deal for Kenny Tete by all accounts. So where are you with it? I know we all want it, don't we? We want players in all the time, but where are you with it? Are you quite calm?
Well, for a start, the window's closed at the moment, isn't it?
No,
I know you can
open.
Still...
It's open now, but it's...
Yeah, but it's... I know you can still have things, you know, going on, and you can talk.
Well, it opened officially last Monday, but no one's done anything because of June the 30th.
Yeah, and
Newcastle,
you've got the cut-off as well, haven't you? Just that you have to get by. We've got 3 players who, you know, the club are in discussion with whether they're going to stay or not. You know, one of them, at least, Idrissa Gana Gueye, you know, hopefully we will keep him, but we need to see what happens there, because that's obviously, if he stays, he's going to command a decent wage and he's going to be very important. If he does leave, focus shifts to replacing him, because he's very important to how we play. And Michael Keane is someone who, you know, they're going to be having conversations
with.
With
Wrexham again today.
Has he? Yeah. But again, you know, he's... not the most important now in terms of, you know, how often he plays, but he's been at the club for a long time. He's, you know, again, probably on a decent wage. That's accounting for money if he goes. Do you need to look at a bit more defensive cover? And obviously Dom as well. It will affect what we do with our striker situation. So those 3 are going to affect what business we do, and depending on what happens with them anyway. They need to figure out what happens there before they start buying replacements of players who might yet stay. Or, you know, spending the money on other positions and then going, hold on, we've just lost our best older mids, we need to go and get one. Oh, well, there's no money to now. You need to see what happens there. And look, at the first time in a good few years, we would be looking through a big array of players. Because in the past it's been, what can we afford? Now it's more of, right, what do we want? Obviously still respecting the boundaries of what you can spend and still trying to be smart with it. But we are actually looking at the football and world as a whole and going, right, who's out there that can come into this team and improve us? Who do we want to try and sell our project to? And when we have moved, it has been for, you know, specific players who we would really like to bring into the football club, like Liam Delap, again, another one who was in demand. If he wasn't as in demand, I don't think we probably would have started talks with him yet, because we'd want to see what was happening with Dom. The situation on that one was, look, this lad's going to move in a couple of weeks, so if you want him, you need to move now. I think if that wasn't the case and we were the only club interested, we wouldn't have really shown our hands with that yet. So I think we're just going to have to see what happens. But, you know, a lot of the names that we're being linked with, you know, Fred aside, I like the look of. I think it shows that we're targeting the right types of players. Like you say, even if nothing comes from it, being linked with the likes of Grealish and Vlahovic. If you said that a year ago, you know, you'd think, right, we must be doing something right then. That's a big step up from what we've been linked with over the past year. And we will still get linked with those types of players, the Sean Longstaffs of the world, your Josh Brownhills, players like that who we've been linked with over the last few years. But that now is in terms of building a squad. It's filling gaps. It's these free agent smart signings that we've been talking about that you just have to make if you need 10 players. But hopefully alongside that, we are going to see some big dealings. And look, we're changing model as well. No more director of football. It's they've got the transfer team, and haven't they, with Moyes and a few others involved, which it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. The director of football model never fully clicked for us, did it? Some would say that's because we never really did it right, and we had an owner who was basically doing the job himself. But David Moyes is very experienced in football. He's experienced with Evertonians. He knows what style of football we respond to and what works well for us. So he obviously deserves to have a say in there. If he felt like he couldn't work with a certain director of football, if he felt like, no, there's too much styles clash here in terms of what I want versus what he wants, a decision did have to be made there. Obviously, you're more impressed with David Moyes over the last 6 months than you are with Kevin Felwell over the last few years. That's just the way it goes. You have to back your horse, don't you? It's going to be interesting to see how it goes. I wouldn't be shocked if in a few years we do return to a director of football model, but I think at the moment, and if you are looking at David Moyes as being in charge for a couple of years and not just being the stopgap that Sean Dyche was, he does need a bit of say in what type of players he wants to bring in.
I think he will have. I think it's the way it is. I think he's got the trust of the freaking group. You can see with the team they've put together that things are moving towards that. But everything's got to work out, hasn't it? It's got to be all sort of feed into one goal, and that is to make Everton better, isn't it? And all push in the right direction. Paul Davis says dim diolch to Longstaff. Well, I don't know what it means, but I'm guessing he's saying no. So fair play. Dim is definitely no in Wales. In Welsh, yeah. Dim is no.
Dim diolch.
Don't know what D-I or diolch. D-I-O-L-C-H. I don't know whether it
doesn't sound positive.
Doesn't sound positive, so fair play. Posh Matty says it's the same for all the players for me. It depends on their proposed squad role and salary links to that. If Longstaff's coming in as a rotation player, fresh legs for the midfield, and pay the line to that, then fair enough. He has energy, experience, a good squad player. Good way to look at it, really. Liam says a decent player, but he's no improvement on James Garner, so it doesn't make much sense. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I just think they do fit slightly different roles in the team. You know, James Garner is a little bit more forward thinking than Sean Longstaff. I think he has a better delivery into the box.
Is a better physical specimen.
Yeah. So the different styles, aren't they? But
the challenge of it, the physicality of it.
But for me, neither of those would be in our starting 11 next season. I think you want someone who, ideally, next to Idrissa Gana Gueye. But then you have these players in the squad, like you say, you know, as long as they're paid to that level and they understand that this is what they're in the squad to do, you do need players like that.
Yeah. Everton Vikings says, God, no. If he was free, maybe, but he'll cost 10 to 15 million. He's on 60 grand a week. Not for me. If you want a challenge for Europe, you don't have Longstaff in your team. Go and find a lad in the French league for half the wages and twice the ability.
I mean, Newcastle did get Europe with Longstaff in it. What was it, 28 games you said he played? 25 games. So, yeah, I take what you say, and obviously it's a very meat and potato sign, isn't it? It's a very 6 out of 10 unambitious.
He'll do a job, but I get it. If you're trying to build and you want to build something, but it depends what David Moyes is looking at. David Moyes is looking at sure things, knows what he's going to get, got the physicality, like you've said. Who knows? Liam D says, different manager, different owners, different transfer teams. Yes, this link still persists. Yeah. Ian says, afternoon all and fellow Blues. Depending on what the fee is and wages, he's a squad player for the Barcode, so will he get in our side? Hopefully this time next week we'll be hearing of more signings. Sasquatch is a Blues. Says, all right, lads, going to give the show proper listen while I'm work. Just off for a pre-work nap. Okay. Says, just wanted to say Longstaff isn't someone I particularly want, although he does look like a Moyes type of player. And if he did come in, he'd boost the numbers. Jake says, Longstaff is a steady player. As a squad player, you'd take him, but we should be going for 2 instant starters in midfield for me. WR.
I think you definitely need one. I think if Guay's going to stay around for... how important he's been over the last few years and how important he still would be. Wasn't he? And then obviously the wage he'd command as well. The money he'd get and the money he's on now, that has to go on a starting 11 player. If he's not going to be starting every week.
Say Moyes sees him as a starter though. Say Moyes goes, he's almost the perfect number 6 for us.
With Longstaff.
And then it's a Trisha next to him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very industrious midfield, isn't it? It's not giving you the on-the-ball ability that you'd want going forward. Yeah, which we are lacking.
Trying to control a game. We don't have it. We don't have someone who can put a foot on the ball in that midfield and just dictate a little bit. There's nobody who does it.
Yeah, the issue is, though, when you've got that 2-man midfield, they both need to have that defensive side down. You can get players who can do both, but then obviously you're looking at the more well-rounded midfielders who can tackle and can pass and can, do it all a little bit. And they're the ones that, unless you, uncover one of these hidden gems that, you're paying top money for.
Tom Dobbo says, yes, Jack, nice to see you back. Everton Viking says the pros to him are... He's available every week. He'd be a solid 5 or 6 every week, but I just don't think he's worth the investment. I acknowledge we must build a squad, but we must build a squad with a decent level of player, and investing money into Longstaff isn't how we improve, in my opinion. It's not clever like the Tetty one, and the field still be costly along with the wages. He's fairly slow. I just don't see what he'd offer in terms of improvement. He wants a young, powerful midfielder in the squad. Wish we'd broaden our horizon. Well, this might just be links, mightn't it? Might be his agent still trying to push it. Graham says, great to see you back on a hot seat, Jack. Gavin says, is that John Aldridge? Don't for the John Aldridge shout there, I think, because of the little goatee. Gladdy says, all right, fellas, what do you think of Forest potentially getting a double deal for Mangala and Weah from Juve for 19 million?
Well, yeah, they've talked like 19 million all in for the two of them, haven't they? Which a little bit strange from Juve's side, letting them go for that little. But
the money, wasn't it?
It's always strange with the Italian clubs, the sort of deals they do with the squad players. It's weird the way they move players around. I mean, Forest have had our mate John Textor involved as well, haven't they, with all the dealings they've got going on with Botafogo. So, yeah, interesting deals from Forest this year.
We should be looking at things like that, trying to pick apart some of those clubs. The Gladiator says, I'm fed up with being linked with Longstaff again. Lazy journalism. Derek says Longstaff is the new Riquelme.
That must be the first time ever Sean Longstaff's been compared to Riquelme.
Gotta be.
Yeah.
That can't be a regular comparison that he's
That's
had.
the only thing they've got in common.
Andrew says if Moyes can use Longstaff, fair enough, as long as it means we can get some younger players in with a higher ceiling, then we should just accept he's a good Premier League midfielder. Nothing special, just solid. Thomas says, does make you laugh when fans of big clubs keep saying we have to be careful spending because of the new PSR thing. They don't realise the English profit and sustainability has been here since 15-16, and they're only enforcing it now because they thought they could hit Everton and Forest hard and not realise the backlash. Yeah, it is mad. It's mad, isn't it? We were called cheats and everything.
They're doing the same thing.
Stadium.
Every club in the league have been doing financially now. Ours wasn't even on, some of the arguably financial doping you've seen other clubs do. Ours
was literally building
making a building. Whereas if you sell buildings to yourself, that's absolutely sounds. You're not a cheat, but if you build one.
Crazy, isn't it? Mendoza Gilgordle says, I'm not adverse to Longstaff if he's relatively cheap. then I can only see his experience as a useful addition to our squad, as well as his work rate. He has a decent shot on him. While I would prefer Dewsbury Hall or Diarra, we need to accept and appreciate these kind of prudent moves are easy to get over the line, as our squad is heavily depleted and funds will be required to players that have pace. But I think if he was free, people would be like, yeah, it's sound.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if it's 15 million plus 60, 70 grand a week, there are players in other leagues who've got higher ceilings.
Yeah, anything like that, I don't think you go near them, but I think signings like that, if we get them for the right fee, you can compare it, you know, the Damari Gray signing, Townsend, you got back a bit further signings who made them, the more, you know, the likes of Darren Gibson, coming in, just players who just, you know, came in for cheap and just did the job, didn't set the world alight, but just good, consistent performers.
Jonathan Ricketts says, I'd take Longstaff, decent squad player, can do a job. Ian says, definitely not Fred. Derek doesn't want Longstaff because he doesn't improve us. Stephen says, hey lads, great show. It's a no for me on Longstaff. Wouldn't want to help the Barcodes with their PSR. Emma says, the fanny head is back in the building. But she also says, welcome home, Jack, with the blue heart.
Thanks, Emma.
So she's having a little bit of fun with you, mate. Thomas says, I'm convinced West Ham don't have their own scouts. I think they just wait for Everton to find a player and then go for him. Every player, we are always both linked.
Why, who were they after?
I don't know, but everyone we've been mentioning, they get mentioned. I think it's just, it's what it is the press just have a stamp with clubs on it and they just go, Sean Longstaff, yeah, press that, copy and paste there, yeah, there you go. Or if it's a printed one, there you go. Everton, West Ham, Leeds, they're all after Forest, they're all after this player. They always do it. Bill says, not the most exciting prospect, but we need 2 additions in midfield. He brings a physical presence. Eddie says, disappointed on missing out on Weir and the other Juve kid for 20 million. But you can't be disappointed if Everton didn't go for him. Can we?
Well, I think he's saying we should be trying to do the deal the Forest to do it.
Maybe,
but it depends what sort of arrangement.
And they're in Europe and stuff like that. Who knows? Eddie says Longstaff is Newcastle's Tom Davies. Matt Gibson says, no, we must be doing far better. Ben Marotti says, I think the thing what we all want to say, Mr. Flipper.
Flippity flip.
What he said, Mr. Flipper, love it. Steve P says, why would we sign Sean Longstaff when we can sign someone younger and better with a higher ceiling for the same price or less? How are we moving forward signing Longstaff? He's not an upgrade on James Garner, who needs upgrading. Not saying he's a bad player, he's a decent player, but we need more than that. Yeah, it's fair, can't disagree. Barry says, let's go for potential, even if it doesn't work out like with Moise Keane. You normally get your money back. Jay says, no, we keep saying we have to improve. He isn't an upgrade on Decore. I'd be happier if he was a squad padder and not a nailed-on starter. But as always, I'll be delighted if he makes me eat our words. Joel says, all right, lads, only just joined this. Sorry if you've moved on, but Longstaff is a huge no from me. Maybe if he's the other side of 25, but definitely not. We need to be signing players 25 and under. Longstaff hasn't improved since he first come onto the scene. For me, we need to be going for more Onana-like deals. Wouldn't say he's an upgrade on James Garner either, to be honest, and he's someone who, in my opinion, needs upgrade.
What just Ed quickly, your thoughts on Irabunum? And what do we do with him this year? Do you think he should go out on loan?
No, because he's had a loan. He played 32 games for QPR, and then he played in Europe for Villa when we bought him, and he was in and got injured and out. So I don't see sending him back out on loan to like the Championship or something, how that benefits Everton.
Do you think he's good enough to be around the squad, though?
I think in a lot of games last season, well, sorry, before he got injured, he was arguably Everton's best player. Then he got injured and then come back, and then when he came back... He
was off the boil.
Yeah, he never got back to his level pre the injury. Now, I don't know whether that's about... He needs a pre-season. I think the manager will give him... He's got the physical attributes of the Boonham. He travels really well with the ball. Decent tackler. It's how he uses the ball is where he's got to get sharper. And I think the manager will give him every opportunity. But he's only a young player. You know, and if it was... I don't know, I just don't think we can be letting players go. Because there's a decision to be made with Harrison Armstrong. He's gone to Derby and had a really good loan. They're desperate for him, as a few others are, to take him on loan. Yet physically, he's a good size, he's a good passer, he's got that little bit of nastiness about him. He's filled out a little bit at Derby. I think the manager's going to give him a good look.
He's one who, for me, has the quality to be around the team. And, you know, although you could look at it from a perspective of would it benefit him better to go out and get a full season worth of football playing every week, I think that'd be good for him. I think, you know, he's went to Derby, he's shown he can probably be around our squad and compete and play and hold that standard, so that'll be an interesting one. Irabunum for me is, you know, again, he could solve that potential headache on saving us money on not buying someone like a Sean Longstaff, so he can maybe fit that role, but he's really not played much football over the last 18 months, has he? And if he's not going to play that much again this season, if he's going to be, you know, fourth, fifth choice, does it maybe serve his Everton career better long term to just go out and just get that experience?
Possibly, but then that'd be Decore gone, Irabunum gone. Then why would Harrison jump over Irabunum? That's what you've got to ask.
For me, I've been...
And Irabunum's 21 and Harrison's 18.
Well, for me, Armstrong is a bit better on the ball and he's a bit more of a forward-thinking midfield option, which I think maybe fits us a little bit better. And he maybe scratches an itch we've got in that side a little bit better than Irabunum does. I think Irabunum, for me, is a worse version of what we've already got in the middle in terms of, you know, a little bit athletic and strong, gets about the pitch, good tackler. We've got a couple of them already. Obviously, we're looking at other ones as well who are a bit more experienced and probably a little bit more up to standard at the moment because they've got that game time. For me, you could end up with Irabunum very far down the pecking order just because you'll have a lot of players who can do what he does already. Harrison Armstrong, for me, could maybe do that role, not every week, obviously, but at times fit that role of that player who can get his foot on the ball a little bit more and be a little bit more of a threat going forward.
Maybe. I'd rather keep Irabunum and get rid of... Don't entertain Longstaff, personally. Moving Irabunum out for Sean Longstaff, to me, wouldn't make any sense. I know they're different players, but I don't know what... Irabunum, for me, couldn't go to the Championship then. He'd have to go abroad. I don't think he'd develop going to the Championship, play 30 odd games in the Championship before. I think, what would he learn?
It'd just be game time, wouldn't it? Depending on what he gets there.
Like Sunderland, then they've just come up playing in the Premier League if they need players. But I'd still keep him. Dim Diolch means no thanks. It's got the no. I got the no bit.
I thought it was probably going to be a little bit more aggressive than that. I'd worried you'd said like a Welsh swear word.
Yeah,
or something.
But that's really good. They're just a nice, very polite. No thanks. No thanks. David Murphy says, welcome back, Jack. It's been too long.
It has indeed.
People saying rumours of Dom going to Leeds. Fair play. Then that's a strange one for him.
Yeah, that's... If he ends up at Leeds, it's not gone how he thought it was going to go. As if there's no way they'll be paying him more than what we've offered him. Absolutely no way. By definition, they're lower down than us at the moment. They've come up to the league. We've obviously been here in a long time. They're probably going to be closer to a relegation fight than we are, you would imagine. It's not the move you'd think he would have been hoping for when he decided to test for the agency, if that's the way it's going to go. And to be honest with you, I don't know, he's certainly not had the best treatments of some of our fans at times. Absolutely not. But I can't see Leeds fans maybe having the patience for him, when he misses games for injury or when he misses some of these one-on-ones that he misses. I think that could very quickly turn a little bit sour if he doesn't show an upturn in form from what he's shown at us the last couple of years.
You've got one player to sign, Will Smith says, not Will Smith, Longstaff or Souček, who are you choosing?
Again, it depends on the money, because Souček, there's been higher fees spoken about for him than you'd get for Longstaff. I think Souček for me is another version of Decore because again, you know, good box crusher, good around the box, good physical presence. He's not all that on the ball, Souček.
No.
He's really not. And when West Ham moved him a bit further down to accommodate Declan Rice, and Declan Rice became the one who was allowed to push up, Thomas Souček looked out of his depth very quickly. Moyes likes him a lot, and Moyes would use him in the same way that we've used Decore. But for me, like I say, we need to be moving away from that.
Yeah.
That style of football has a ceiling on it. And you want someone like Charlie Alcaraz in there who
But
can
if you
carry
had
the
to
ball.
choose one, who do you go for?
Souček's a better player, absolutely, hands down, but I'd pick Longstaff.
I'd go Souček, just so we could sing Souček again, ole, ole, when he scores, because he gets 1 in 3, doesn't he? So in that position, he got 9 goals again last season, playing off the striker, which is far more than Duke's ever got, so... If I had to, I wouldn't have either, by the way.
Yeah.
I think listen, if we got both of them, one or the other, would both help the squad. Would it move the needle massively, either of them? Come on, James, you have your, before we finish, have your say.
Can you repeat that question?
So, well, first of all, what are your thoughts on Sean Longstaff?
I think it's just a proper boring transfer, isn't it? Like, is he much better
James,
than
we
James
might sign him and we'll have to sell him to
I think it's
everybody.
a great transfer.
Yeah, tremendous.
I think he's just a better James Garner, in my opinion. He's not really like a specific role where he excels at anything. He's just a good all-rounder. And we're signing him, and I don't think it's that big of an upgrade on what we've already got anyway. So I just... It's a sign to fill out the squad, but I wouldn't be like moved by it. I'm not thinking like it's a great sign. Like Tete, I can understand, but Sean Longstaff, I just don't.
Okay.
I'd rather play De Bruyne or Garner.
All right, and then you've got a choice, Souček or Sean Longstaff.
I'd pick Souček. Souček, he's proven like they can score goals under Moyes, and he's obviously got a bit of a relationship with him, hasn't he? So,
Okay, good shout, good shout. Kieran Dooley, I saw this before, didn't really want to give it any credence, but we weren't linked with Nonso, we're linked with Dan James.
No more one-footed wingers from Leeds, please. Please.
You can't score goals.
We've done our time with that.
Yeah, you can't score goals.
No more.
James English says, have you seen the stadium capacity's been reduced by 119 seats? No, haven't heard that. Is it a fact? Yeah. There
What's
you go.
that for?
Instead of making the stadium bigger, we've made it smaller. Fair play. Cato says the streets will never forget Irabunim's assist for Tarkovsky in the derby. And they shouldn't
true.
do. They shouldn't do. Tremendous assist. Tremendous assist. Stephen says no, and no for Longstaff. And Emma
Come
just
off the fence, Stephen.
wants to hear you say Calvert-Lewin just once.
I see. You still don't get this because that's how his name
What's
is
his
spelled.
name?
Calvert-Lewin.
What's his name? Because you used to say Calvert-Lewin. You didn't say Calvert-Lewin. You used to go
This is the
Calvert-Lewin.
Ghana
It's
gay
fine.
thing all over again,
Well,
isn't it?
Yeah, but you've said Ghana gay before you said Gway. That's why. But it's fine.
I'd still argue that's his
Yeah,
name.
I've got no problem with it. Emma just wanted it. It's like doing requests for the
You get me once every 6 months, and this is how you spend it, Emma.
viewing public. She wants to hear you. Maybe she's missed it. Calvert-Lewin. Go on.
Calvert-Lewin. That's. I don't know how else you want me to say it.
Because you did used to say Calvert-Lewin, but I like it. You've
I just rolling
upgraded.
my arse, giving him that Spanish flair.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, we're trying to make him. Well, it's the Italian, the Al, you know.
And
The song.
flippity flip.
The flippity flip, that's what it was. On the flippity flip. It's all good. It's all good. Right, beautiful people. Big thanks to Jack for coming in and giving us his wisdom. Don't leave it so long till you're back in.
I won't.
Make sure you don't. Like, subscribe, do all that. See you later.